Thank you very much for conducting and for organizing such a great meeting. Really, I am very happy to be as a part of you. I would like to start my presentation with Imam Hussein alayhi salam sentences that he says, "Beyond my poorness, always there is a God, which having such a God may cover all of my weakness, and without that one, everything is worthless." It means ماذا وجد من فقدك وما الذي فقد من وجدك. This is Mahdi Salehi, an associate professor of accounting at the Ferdowsi University of Mashhad, Iran. And our topic is audit expectation gap. This topic has newly evolved in accounting and auditing literature. However, this topic has great history in the accounting, but recently has attracted much more attention. And it blames audit provision at audit, duty and audit profession at whole. But before that one, I have to explain briefly about auditing and type of auditing and some related issues to auditing, such as external auditing, agency theory, demand for independent audit, and finally, we can reach the audit expectation gap, and we have to analyze why it happened in nowadays. Please go to next page. Okay. And the definition of auditing, from terminology aspect, the word audit has derived from the Latin words auder. It means to hear. After, civilization, the audit provision has evolved in the world. So it has a great history and great background nowadays. But some movement and some changes has happened after evolution of the auditing, especially in the industrial revolution. As you know even better than me, in industrial revolution, they introduced new kind of company, so that corporation or public company. It has a great advantages compared to other type of countries, other type of companies. But there were some issues. Some worry has happened after evolving public companies. The issue was that it should be separated between ownership and managers, so that here again leads some problem such as conflict of interest. And conflict of interest emphasize the existence of external auditors. But in reality, the role of auditors was directly linked to management stewardship functions, with stewardship being regarded in the narrow sense of honesty and integrity. But in common sense, as much as possible, the company has growing and become bigger and bigger, the need for external auditors is very essential to this kind of companies. And nowadays we can see all well-developed countries has a great and big companies. But the main question is why developed country has a great companies, which these kind of companies may create some social welfare, some economic benefit to whole society, but unfortunately developing country do not have the same condition. What is the reason behind? The reason is certainly that the company, the public company, is establishing in some country, it's creating several advantages to the country. The first one is employment. The second one is increasing GDP. And the third one is increasing export. The fourth one is maintaining, the value of the currency of the company. So all of them leads to a single word we can call so-called social welfare. In the other word, social welfare is directly connected to the company. Without the company, we cannot reach the social welfare. So the engine of social welfare nowadays is company. But as much as possible, these companies become going to big and big, growing up. They need somebody to safeguard and maintain from error, fraud, and illegal acts. Who's safeguarding from this company? The answer is very clear. The answer is auditors. So nowadays, auditors are playing very crucial and very essential as well as a very significant job nowadays. In some view, we can divide the developed country and developing country by some reasons. From my viewpoint, the first reason is that the auditors which practicing auditing in developing country, they are not taking care of her or him job. But in contrast, those auditors which they are practicing auditing in developed country, they are very careful and not careless to his profession. So if we come across with the exact definition of auditing, it means examination, inspection, scrutiny, account for, survey, check out, review. And auditors are in charge to give his report, his idea on financial statement which provided by the manager. This duty is not a very simple duty. In theory, it is not so tough job actually. But in reality and in practice, it is very difficult and very tough job. And Because in nature, auditing is belong to service industry. Let me bring in some, real example about auditing services. In reality, we have two kinds of companies. The first company, the first types, they're producing goods, tangible goods. We can see. Suppose some company producing a car. We can see this is tangible goods. We can measure, we can judge about quality and quantity, price, and everything very easily. We can compare these goods with other goods and come to conclusion. What is the differences? What is the advantages or disadvantages of these goods compared to another goods? But we have please stop here. But we have a different kind of company, so-called service industry. In service industry, you are rendering service rather than producing goods. Service means intangible, goods. It is not visible. It is not tangible. So we cannot easily compare these services to the other services. Why? Because we cannot easily touch, we cannot easily see, we cannot easily judge. In this kind of or service industry, we cannot easily judge about the quality and quantity of the services. Auditing is belong to the second industry or service industry, so that nobody can easily come across or come to conclusion about the quality and quantity of the auditing services. In reality, producing some goods are specified to some parties, but rendering audit services is belong to the society at whole. In the other word, auditing is a social phenomenon, or it is engaged directly or indirectly to the society. As I mentioned earlier, the goal and the main objective of the whole country and society is social welfare. But how we can reach this social welfare? From my viewpoint, which I specialize in accounting and auditing, I can frankly tell, without high quality of auditing, no country can reach to social welfare. So, auditing is very essential nowadays. As much as the company is growing up and become national, international, multinational. Nowadays we have multinational companies. It's equal to, one country, from economic aspects, the company is equal to more than 2-3 countries. So, why and how this situation has provided for the company? Why? Because it creates job. In developing country, we have a big problem. Unemployment. Please stop in before page. Go to page before. Sir? Yes, go. Go to this.
Number 4? Number 4?
No. Go. Yes. Here is enough.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When I told you, please, you can move to the next page.
Okay.
In developing country, all developing nations and developing countries, we have a big and severe problem. The severe problem is unemployment. Why Iraq? Why Iran? Why Afghanistan? Why Pakistan? Why other developing countries has a high rate of unemployment? The answer is very clear. The answer is we do not have a much more company or big company or international company. But compare rather than developed country, there is no unemployment. The unemployment rate is very low compared to developing country. What is the reason? The reason is very clear and very simple. The reason is that there are a lot of big companies. We can find a job very easily. So, who taking care of these companies? The answer is the auditing. Nowadays, we have a different type of auditings, especially in much big companies, especially in developing nations. The first one is investigative audit. In the one kind of audit, so-called investigative audit. The another one is information system audit. You know, nowadays IT infrastructure has occupied even our personal life. You know, with IT infrastructure, I'm in Iran, you are in Iraq. We are starting communicating, teaching, learning, and listening, arguing, debating, everything. For which base? Because of IT base. So IT has great influence even on our personal life. Certainly, the IT may affect our accounting and auditing system. I very clearly remember when I was the bachelor student, or bookkeeping, recording, bookkeeping, even financial reporting was manually. It was very, very, very hard and very tough job. It killed our time. But nowadays, according to IT-based accounting and auditing, we can easily provide balance sheet. Or we can, very easily, as soon as possible, we can provide financial reporting. So IT has merged to accounting and auditing. So another need from audit aspect has evolved to audit information system of auditing. Another type of audit is forensic audit. Maybe you know about this matter better than me. I'm not going to explain much more in detail. Another audit is statutory audit. Even that is the very traditional type of auditing. Even you know better than me. Other type of audit is tax audit. You know, corporation and public companies do the job behalf of the government. You know, government has evolved because of reaching to social welfare. From very beginning, government has evolved to reaching to providing social welfare. But an English proverb says, no money, no honey. It means without money, we cannot reach anything else. In order to achieving or reaching to social welfare, government has mandated some duties and some taxes to the companies, especially to public companies. So, some companies may have some tax evasion or tax avoidance. Or in the simple word, some company or some person, they are not happy to pay tax to the government. Legally or illegally, they want to differ or not pay the tax to the government. So another kind of audit has appeared as a tax audit. Other type of audit is value for money audit. And other one is sale audit. And the last and the most important auditing is the financial statement, auditing of financial statements. We are going to talk about financial statements, your external auditing. Our debate is going to start in financial statement auditing or independence or external auditing. Please go to the next page, sir. So, audit expectation gap is completely merged with external audit. Before starting to talk about, audit expectation gap, I'm going to briefly explain what is or terminology of the external audit. At first, I'm going to talk about the demand, why external audit has appeared in the world. In reality, the demand for audit arises from the potential conflict of interest that exists between shareholders and managers. Or the contractual management between these parties normally requires that management issues a set of financial information that reports the operation of the company, or a brief analysis of the series advocating the need for auditing give rise to contractual arrangement under policeman theory, lending credibility theory, moderator of clients theory, and inspire confidence and agency theory. Go next page, please. As I told you, when public company has evolved, has born after industrial revolution, the issue has happened. What was the issue? The issue was the company attract and absorb a lot of money. And all shareholders just looking for the much more benefit or interest. So that the manager of such companies should always be an experienced manager, or we can call this well experienced manager with high academic qualification, so that may the shareholders not find such a person among themselves. So they look for such a person beyond the shareholders. They hired managers, they went to contract with managers. For which reason? The one reason is available. Even this is the most important reason for increasing the in short time profit and long time wealth, so that managers hired behalf of shareholders. They receive money per month, or you can make call salary. But the company, the assets of the company is belong to the shareholder. In reality, managing may have them sometimes misbehave. Because why? Because as you know, in economic subject, we can tell the economical needs of the human being is unlimited. But unfortunately, the source of human being is very limited. So everybody has own ik, as English proverb says. In the other word, in this world and nowadays, nobody has an economical satisfaction from his profit. Everybody engaging to earn a big money, or you can tell false. So managers are human beings. They have some specific economic needs. They want to meet their economical expectations, so that sometimes they conduct some misbehave, because legally they have a full authority, full administrative authority to do anything in the company. But the direction is that managers should follow up the shareholders' directions. But in reality, in real situations, sometimes they commit some misbehave. Why? Rather, moving towards to achieving shareholders' objective and goals, they use the company facilities in order to achieving him personal objective. So that the problem has happened, manager may not use properly the assets of the company in order to generating much more profit to the shareholders. So, how we can solve this issue? According to Jensen and Mackling, which they first introduced agency theory in 1967, I think, yeah. 7, they introduced agency theory. What is the agency theory? According to Jensen and Mackling, managers may have some misbehave in the company in order to improving and increasing the personal profits rather than shareholder profits. Why we call the agency theory? Because in reality, the managers are the executive agent of the shareholders. Why? Because this kind of people, so-called managers, they have a great experience, great academic qualification and degree about a specific topic, and they can use and they can manage the company in order to achieving much more profit in short term and increasing wealth in the long term. So that agent may not always follow the direction which legally he accepted to move around a specific criteria. Okay, please go to the next page. Sir?
Yes, Doctor, now
Yeah.
new page.
Yeah. As I told earlier, agency theory analysis the relationship between two parties, investor or shareholders, and manager. The agent that is managers undertakes to perform certain duties for the principal. Who is the principal? It means shareholders or investors. And the principal undertakes to reward the agent according to Jensen and Macron. So, as I mentioned earlier, managers may misuse his expertise, his experience against the investors and shareholders' benefit, so that external or somebody should monitor, somebody should monitor managers. Who can monitor managers? I think external auditors may monitor manager, may supervise and monitor managers very carefully. Or the role of auditors is to supervise the relationship between managers and the owners. The responsibility of every part is well defined in the regulation, but from every aspect, manager may, in reality, may be responsible for the specific duties, so that auditors should monitor, should supervise this kind of managers which they are going to conduct some illegal act and doing some misbehavior. Okay? Next page, please. According to agency theory, the managers and owners have to realize that the auditor does not have a specific responsibility for accounting, but only see that the auditing is done properly. It is greatly argued that in the corporation or public companies in which share ownership is widely separated and managerial behavior does not always maximize the return of the shareholders. Why? Due to some agency problem. The degree of uncertainty about whether The agent will pursue self-interest rather than company or rather than, shareholders' profit, with the requirement of the contract represent an agent risk for an investors. In reality, when manager wants to manage or wants to work in some company, they have to provide a legal contract. According to contract, managers in agreement should follow the interest of the principal or shareholder. But should be very responsible and as well as accountable. But in reality, they are not responsible, or they are very irresponsible for the duties. What will happen? It leads some frauds, some illegal acts. So, what is the consequence of the committing fraud? The company, rather increasing, it should be decreasing. Rather become bigger and bigger, it start become smaller and thinner. So it damages social welfare. Nowadays, according to recent literature and recent claims in the ownership of a corporation, we cannot claim that shareholders are the owner of the company. In corporate governance sectors, we can tell that the company is belong to the society. And this company has several stakeholders. The first stakeholder is shareholders. The second one is potential investors. The third one is government. Another one is even competitor, supplier, bankers, and society at large. Nowadays, nobody can claim the companies belong to me, even especially in multinational companies. But we can claim, according to current literature, we can claim the companies belong to the society at whole. But this society has, or this company has a different stakeholders. The first stakeholder is investors or shareholders. Every stakeholders receives some benefit from the company. The first stakeholders is, as I told earlier, shareholder, they earn money. The second one is potential investors. Somebody which have some money, they are looking for invest in the best place in order to achieving a high rate of profit. So the second stakeholder is potential investor. The third one is government. Government has a great profit from the companies, which we can subdivide to two kinds of benefits as derived from company to every government. The first one is, generating job, providing job. As you know even better than me, the first duty of the main duty of the government is social welfare. The major element to achieving social welfare is creating job creation. But it's very costly and it's very, hard to create some job. But When a public company has established, unintentionally, it creates job to company, to the country. So the first benefit of the company to the government is creating job or approaching to the social welfare. And the second one is tax. As I told earlier, no money, no honey. Without money, we cannot reach the honey, or I don't know, honey, what we can call in Arabic language. As much as corporation reach to profit, this profit should be shared between shareholders and government. So, government has a great interest in the corporation. Another one is a competitor. Competitor, it means رغبة. I don't know, pronounced fluently in Arabic or not. But even competitor has a great benefit, a great interest from the company. So my question is, how competitor receive some advantages from the companies? Can anybody help me about this matter? Dear participants, can anybody help me about this matter? How competitor receive some benefit from the companies? Or in the other word, why we call competitor as a specific stakeholder of the company? Anybody can answer me? Okay. Competitors indirectly receive some great benefit from the companies. Suppose in pure competition economic or pure competition market, competitors have emphasized to our weaknesses. Without knowing ourselves, competitors, they will find our weaknesses. And indirectly, they will tell us, your company has this part, in this part has some weaknesses. So we can improve our weaknesses very easily. The same condition may happen for other company and other competitors. So that in accounting and auditing literature, we can call the competitor as a great stakeholders. Okay, please go to the next page. Sir? Okay, I'm not bothering you. I'm bothering you as you think proper. Please hold on, my laptop has some.
This is a new page.
Okay. Please, my laptop had some problem. I solved the issues and I come back to the meeting as soon as possible. Given that the principal will always be in stake in the outcome generated by the agent, agency theory demonstrates that accounting and auditing have an important task to providing information, and this task will often associated with stewardship, in which an agent report to the principal on the company's event. Ijiri, the great researcher from Spain, has passed away I think 2 or 3 years ago, has greatly emphasized to the agency theory. He told that he brought the stewardship term to agency theory. Stewardship, it means monitoring, it means an-nazara. And from his viewpoint, the demand for auditing is sourced in the need to have some means of independent verification to reduce record-keeping errors, assets misappropriation, and fraud within business and business organization. So that the first duty of auditing is detecting error, mistake, fraud. The main duty of external auditors is detecting error, mistake, and fraud. We have in Holy Quran, we have some ayah, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. What is the meaning of إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ? It means human being always mixed with the mistake. So that maybe good managers has entered to the big company unintentionally. They commit some mistake. Why? Because the company is very big and very huge. He cannot concentrate to all aspects of the company. So that it happened error. Error, it means not intentional. Unintentionally. It means not by cast, not by niyat, not by think. Unintentionally. So, as much as the company becomes bigger and bigger, this kind of error may increase. So that somebody should monitor the manager and give him in advance which you are going wrong. You have to correct your direction and your work. That is not intentionally, but also unintentionally. As I told you, human beings always commit mistakes. Human being is not angel, is not fresh, is not ma'soom. So that it commits some mistakes. But we have two kinds of mistakes. Iradi, غير iradi, intentionally, unintentionally. The first one is not by thinking, not by thought in advance, and the second one is by niyat. And I don't know in Arabic, I explaining perfectly in Arabic as well or not. So that according to agency theory, managers they commit mistake. So auditors should be there. Why? Because eliminating, reducing this kind of mistakes which committed by the managers. But the second type of mistakes are available as well. Especially in India. By planning, by cast, by niyat, managers commit some mistake. But this is amdi, not sahvi. The first mistake was sahvi, and in Arabic language says sahvi. But the second one is fraud. Fraud is amdi. That is not acceptable. This kind of mistake is not acceptable actually. So that auditor always should be there in order to decreasing some error, mistakes, and frauds. According to Hermanson et al., there are 4 conditions in business environment which create a demand for an independent audit. Rather, these rations, which I told you, Hermanson postulates 4 reasons for existence of external auditors in economic world. He told that the first one is conflict of interest. Conflict of interest in Arabic or in Persian, تضاد منافع, I don't know. I pronounced perfectly or not. The second one is consequence. The third one is complexity, and the last one is remoteness. So, let me briefly explain one by one. Conflict of interest. As I mentioned in agency theory, a company's financial statements are prepared by the director, and these directors are essentially reporting on their performance. You know, after management interest to the companies, he or she, according to accounting standard, he or she should, should record all financial transactions in general journal, classify all financial transactions in general ledger, and after the end of the fiscal year, he or she should be report to all stakeholders. The third stage, so-called financial reporting. But from outsider or from stakeholders, managers, they are giving the report on his or her performance, so that there is a bias, because everybody should postulate, I'm a good person, I'm a good student, there's a good professor, he's a good clerk, and so on and so on. If somebody asks me how you are teaching, may I claim I'm the first professor in the world. But why? Because of self-bias. Because myself, I judging about myself. It leads self-bias. It leads self-bias. But in reality, managers give reports to outside of the company or stakeholders. In somewhat and some part, there are some self-bias, because managing are giving his performance to outside, so that intentionally or unintentionally they may somewhat manipulate or dress, window dress, financial reporting, so that conflict of interest may happen in such a condition, rather than agency problem, which I told according to Jensen and Macklin. The second one is consequence. You know, if user of the company's financial statement based their decision on unreliable information, they suffer serious financial losses. Consequences, it means tawali, عواقب, I don't know, I think I pronounced in Arabic language perfectly. عواقب, it means suppose this financial information is not correct, what will happen? You know, financial reporting contains financial information. Whenever we are talking about information, the next step is decision making. Suppose I'm going to buy a car, I collect some information. About the price of the car, mileage, and some insurance aspects, some other formality of the car. I collected this kind of information. Why? In order to making some decision to buy a car. As much as my information are integrated, are clean, are fair, so that it leads my to great decision. But in sometimes somebody give me, not fair or false information. What will happen to me? According to the incorrect information, I will decide and I take action. What will happen? It regret me in future. Regret. What is it? Regret in Arabic language. So, let me go to auditing one directly. Financial reporting contains financial information. For whom? For stakeholders, for outside party of the country. They use this kind of information for which reason? For making decision. Which kind of decision? Economical decision. So that, suppose, imagine, somewhat and sometimes this information is not true and fair. What will happen to stakeholders? As I classified, we have, several groups of stakeholders. They are not one group. There are even more than 7 groups. This information may not correct. What will happen? All 7 groups will take a wrong decision. So everybody will lose. So that according to consequence it means tawali, output. Other things which postulated for as a demand for auditing, complexity. Complexity means ابهام، پیچیدگی، ابهام. As the information communicated has become more complex, the user of the information have found it much more difficult or even impossible to obtain direct assurance about the quality of information received. We are experts in accounting and auditing. We know A to Z of financial reporting because this is our job. This is our duty. Or teaching, either in teaching or in practicing in real world. But a lot of people, they are not familiar with financial aspects. Even suppose he's a general practitioner, he's a chemist, he's a driver, pilot, everybody. Just a little party has accounting and finance knowledge. We can analyze What is the financial result? What is the income statement? What is the, how is the situation of the company according to this map, financial map? But a lot of people, they are not familiar. A lot of stakeholders, they are not familiar with this kind of business language or accounting. So that complexity is the another reason for demand for auditing. The other one, or the last one, is the remoteness. Remoteness, it means not available. Remoteness is caused by the separation of the user of the information and the information sources. Information sources, where is the information sources? Information sources is the company, inside of the company. But majority of the stakeholder, they are not legally allowed to enter the company. Even shareholders, they cannot easily enter the company and check, books and records of the financial aspect of the companies. So that there is separation, differentiation between user of the information and source of the information. So some reliable flow should be there to lend the credibility that this information has a good source and reliable source, so that auditing has happened. So finally, we reach to the expectation gap, or audit expectation gap. Auditing in theory, they are doing very good job to the society, not in developed country, but also in developing country as well. In all countries, no matter developing, underdeveloped, or well-developed countries, because they are safeguarding the companies, and companies generating some social profit or social welfare to the society. And even they are going to creating jobs. Creating jobs is very essential, as I told several times in this session, very essential, especially for developing countries. For developing nations is very vital. But in practice, something again, another thing may happen. So that the audit expectation gap may happen in such an atmosphere, in such an environment. The expectation gap is the gap between auditors' actual standard of the performance and the various public expectation of audit performance. Some researcher has postulated that public expect from auditors to verify that all accounts are right, or company will not fail, or company will guard against fraud and error, fully guard against fraud and error, or all companies will act within the law and the regulation, a specific regulation which mandated to the companies. Or companies will be completely managed, led, and correctly directed to achieving to the main objective. Our companies will adopt a responsible attitude to environmental and social matters. That is the duty of that is the expectation of public from the auditors. In reality, some of them that is not, in reality we cannot manage some expectation of the public, because as I mentioned earlier, auditors are not angel, are not fresh there, which completely with a glance they show that is the wrong, that is the correct, because of audit risk. We have a risk in auditing. We have to accept everything, every condition of auditing. But public, they are not familiar with audit responsibility, audit limitation, so that they climb sometimes illegal and unbelievable even expectation from the auditors. But audit expectation gap has happened in different developing country, developed country, and even underdeveloped country. In the other world, prior literature in audit expectation gap evidence that audit expectation gap has existed by the past 30 years ago. And it is not belong to a specific country. The audit expectation gap has become a very hot topic, even considerable topic in worldwide. And several researches has happened about the subject of the study in the USA, the UK, New Zealand, Germany, Singapore, Malaysia, Bangladesh, India, and Iran. So, let me explain in much more detail the term audit expectation gap. The term expectation gap is commonly used to describe the situation whereby a difference in expectation exists between a group with a certain expertise and a group which relies upon the expertise. The public perception of auditors' responsibility differs from that. Yes, tell me please. Sir?
Yes, Doctor, yes.
I'm explaining. How long do we have a time to finish decision?
This, now time finished.
Time finished.
But can you complete?
Okay, give me 5 minutes time. I will finish everything and finalize.
Okay, Doctor, no problem. Doctor, no problem.
Okay,
No problem,
okay.
Doctor. Okay.
So sorry, dear student and dear participant, because we start really, I think, 1 hour late due to some condition, because we are not presented in the V room. We wait for you due to this reason. Our legal time is going to finish, but let me come to conclusion within 10 minutes, maximum 10 minutes. I'll finish everything. So, the genesis of the expectation gap. The term audit expectation gap emerged during the 1970 by Legio, according to Christopher Humphrey. As I mentioned, expectation gap, what is the expectation gap? Let me bring a very clear and very clean example. Suppose you go to a restaurant. Somebody bring the menu to you and you select some specific food. You pay the specific money for the same food. And you are expecting to serve the same food to you. But after some time, you already paid. But after some times, they bring another food to you. No matter better food or the equal food, but the food is completely different than which you ordered already. So you expected to have suppose kebab, they bring for you biryani. So you already paid for the food. You expect to bring the specific as well as the selected food. But in reality, you come across with different food. So your expectation was something else. In reality, you faced something else. This is the expectation gap. The same scenario may happen in accounting and auditing. So that from, as I mentioned earlier, auditing is a social phenomenon or social career so far. Society indirectly paid for the auditors. Indirectly. Directly company pays. A specific client pays. But indirectly, society pay for auditors. But what happened? The problem is society has a different expectation. Society has a different expectation. They already paid for the, auditors, but in reality, they expect something else. There is a huge expectation because the society is not belong to one group. There are, as I mentioned earlier, there are more than 9 groups. Every group has a specific expectation. Even in sometimes, each group expectation conflicts each other. Suppose potential investors looking for companies to have some much more profit, less loan and less liabilities. But bankers or creditors, so-called, they look for a company which less liabilities. There is some mismatch between expectation of the users. Auditor is in the one side, in another side, whole society. The whole society is subcategorized. More than 7 subgroups, and each subgroup has a specific expectation. Let me bring a real example for you. In reality, we cannot satisfy everybody. We cannot make happy everybody. Suppose you are a student. If you want to make happy to everybody, you cannot do the same. This is a very tough job. Nobody can satisfy all expectation from all parties, even private life, even or academic life. The same history may repeat for auditor itself. Auditors cannot make happy or cannot satisfy all stakeholders' demand. So that always there is an expectation gap between what actually auditors do and what public in reality needs. This interval, so-called audit, expectation gap. According to Christopher Humphrey, which nobody can eliminate, has. Nobody can eliminate such a gap. But according to some specific criteria, we can reduce such a gap no matter in any nations, underdeveloped, developing and developed countries. So this questionable gap blame audit provision itself. And according to the latest literature on this topic, we have to reduce, we cannot eliminate such a gap, because I wrote some paper which published in 2019. I brought very great example, and because of a shortage of time, I'm not going to talk about this matter. Because, you know, if we go in deep of the audit expectation gap, there are several reasons for audit expectation. In broad category of reasons, we can divide into reasonable and reasonableness item. Reasonable, it means acceptable item. Suppose auditors are not very professional. Auditors are not very ethical. Auditors are not conducting, some specific criteria. Auditors are not doing his job very well. But in contrast of these reasons, we have unacceptable reasons. Suppose, as I mentioned to you, all stakeholders, they are not familiar with financial reporting language or accounting language, with so-called business language. So they may demand some high aspect, they may have some demand and some specific expectation from auditors. In reality, auditors have some limitation, some barrier, some criteria, some cornerstone, some yardstick. For each provision, there is some yardstick. So, those people that are not familiar with auditing, they do not, imagine this kind of yardstick to the auditors. So that the good expectation gap has two reasons: reasonableness reason, unreasonableness reasons, or acceptable reasons, unacceptable reasons. Those reasons which acceptable from academy, that is the shortfall of auditors in his duties. And those reasons which are not acceptable, that is due to some misunderstanding of users, or we can call some illiteracy of users, and some personal, intuition of the users, which may lead such an expectation. So, I'm going to finish this session because, as I told you, from 9:30, I was ready to start my presentation, and my presentation has finished. Anybody, any student, any professors, any participants has a specific questions, please let me know. Please, even you can introduce yourself one by one if it is possible. Otherwise, I am at your disposal. Any question, any dot, any unmarked, unsolved issues, please ask me, please let me know. And further, I'm very keen, I'm very interested to have some collaboration with a student and with professors from Iraq. I mentioned my email in the first page. Any student, any professor may have some question, may have some interested to some collaboration, he or she very welcome, and I'm at your disposal. Otherwise, I want to say goodbye one and all and everybody, and I want to read a small part of Quran. فَاللَّهُ خَيْرٌ حَافِظًا وَهُوَ أَرْحَمُ الرَّحِيمِينَ. Thank you for participating. All the best.
Thank you,
Thank you for
your presentation.
Understanding us.
Was very good. Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you so much.
My best regard to your student, to your family. Hope we meet you in Iran. We meet you and your student in Iran, Ferdowsi University of Mashhad. It's my honor, it's my pleasure to meet you in Iran. Anyway, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
في امان الله في امان الله مع السلامه. Thank you.
خدا حافظ. خدا حافظ.
الله حافظ. طلابنا هاي كانت المحاضرة الأولى، فأنتوا إذا فايتين على المحاضرة الثانية بس تقدرون تغادرون في وقت معين حتى يجي الأستاذ ونسوي التحضيرات مالت الدرس إن شاء الله ونبدأ من جديد بلا زحمة عليكم. المحاضرة الأولى انتهت وشوي انتظرونا في ربع ساعة وفوتوا على المحاضرة الثانية إذا تفوتون على المحاضرة الثانية. شكرا لحضوركم.
نفس الرابط؟
اي نفس الرابط، فد ربع ساعة على ما يجي الأستاذ المحاضر حتى نكنك وياه ونشوف الصوت ونشوف البرزنتيشن مالته، إن شاء الله تجون تلتحقون بالسيمينار إن شاء الله.
ان شاء الله.
تمام.